It's time for 515 Fantasy Football.
I know football. Are you ready for some football?
Domination on Sundays begins with listening to these guys on Thursdays.
You ready for this?
Over 40 years of fantasy football experience between them.
Yeah!
One is a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps, husband and father, entering his 18th year of fantasy competition. Brian Eikenberry. The other, also a proud husband and father, is one of the winningest fantasy minds in the state. Celebrating 24 years of excellence. Andy Hall.
Let's get the game on!
It's showtime. The 515 Fantasy Football Show with your hosts, Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry.
Welcome to a Week 6 edition of the show. Andy Hall alongside Brian Eikenberry for 2 more hours of in-depth, data-driven fantasy analysis from 2 of the best, if I do say so myself. At the very least, 2 of the most experienced, Brian.
Well, I was going to say one of the best, and then there's me. But, you know, I'll let it slide.
You took that in a whole different direction than how I thought you were going there. At this point of the fantasy season, Brian, we begin to really get to know these players, these teams. The true trends start to come into better focus. The mirages begin to blur into nothingness. Makes our job that much easier forecasting the successes and the failures of your roster.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, and it really is trending. You know, our mantra in the beginning was don't overreact to week 1, don't overreact to week 2. Well, now you have 4 or 5 games worth of data to make that analysis.
We invite you to be a part of our online community on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter at 515 Fantasy, and online at espndesmoines.com. We're all about interacting with you. Our guarantee, as always, we will never ignore you. You invest in us. We give it right back. I know how annoying it is, Brian, when I'm looking for some advice from somebody and I throw it out there and I hear nothing back.
I know. It's like I sit there with my psychiatrist for an hour and they don't say anything.
That's when you know you've got real problems.
Yeah, that's when I know need to go download the 515 Fantasy Football podcast.
We're always here for you. We do draw the line at a certain point, though.
Let's
just throw that out.
No, you don't. No, I have no standards at all. No, I will answer anything.
Brian is on Twitter at IkeFFB. That's IKEFFB. You can go ahead and send him your personal problems. I would rather you keep it to fantasy football and music, mostly, at Andy Hall Radio. Is my Twitter handle. Got a ton of things to cover over this week's show. Of course, grades on all the fantasy relevant players, break down each of this week's matchups. For those of you in need of a dart throw, another round of bargain bin, pop quiz, answering 3 of fantasy's toughest questions, and the always unpredictable but sometimes entertaining Flea Flicker will wrap things up. But we begin, as we always do, with some headlines of fantasy note. Colin Kaepernick has been named the Niners' Week 6 starting quarterback, Brian.
Terrible.
How's that for fantasy analysis?
Do not add.
I would agree. The Ravens fired offensive coordinator Mark Trestman, replaced him with Marty Mornhinweg. Do you know anything about Marty?
He may have been in Detroit a time or two, but whose decision was it to cut Forsett?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and guess that maybe Mark Trestman had something to do with it.
It makes me wonder. You cut him, and then we still lose, and your running game still sucks, so it's your fault.
I think Marty Mornhinweg is a guy that's his first goal in being offensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens is to get that running game figured out. And I think having Kenneth Dixon back in the lineup is going to help.
And if you took my bargain bin from a week or two ago to stash Kenneth Dixon, you might be real smart right now.
Yeah, we've been saying that for a number of weeks now, just waiting for his opportunity to come back healthy. And when he does, he's going to hit. It's going to be something beautiful.
Pay dirt.
Right? Redskins head coach Jay Gruden says running back Rob Kelly has shown he's deserving of some carries. This goes back to my overall hatred of Matt Jones in general.
Good thing you dumped him.
Boy, have I been talking about how much I hate Matt Jones all season, even going back to the preseason shows. Remember that?
Yep.
And I did unload him in one of my leagues, by the way. Felt very good.
Yes, you did.
I didn't even care that I only got Orleans Darkwa for him. But I think, or not Orleans Darkwa, I got Quincy Enunwa. That's who I got. And actually, I feel pretty good about that now that Eric Decker's on IR. Gruden also says wide receiver Deshaun Jackson needs and deserves the ball more. I actually wholeheartedly agree with this. When you've got a game breaker like Deshaun Jackson in your offense, I understand that you've got a very talented tight end in Jordan Reed who's got some health issues of his own going on right now. He's in the league's concussion protocol, may not play this week actually. But Deshaun Jackson is a guy that Kirk Cousins should be targeting a lot more than he is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I'll be covering here in the matchups as we get going, but I was very relieved to hear that from Mr. Gruden.
Bucks running back Charles Sims placed on IR with a season-ending knee injury. Really unfortunate, too, because he's one of our quote-unquote do-the-opposite guys, and hate to see one of those guys go down, but there are still a few afloat out there, Theo Riddick and Bilal Powell among them. But
and
Charles,
Justin Forsett just landed with the Lions. Let's do this.
We'll see what happens here, because, I mean, they're down to basically nobody there in Detroit, so... We will talk about that a little bit later on. Raiders running back Latavius Murray may return to the field in Week 6. He's got that turf toe injury. He was out of practice on Wednesday. It's a very tough injury to forecast, Brian, in terms of timeline and when a player might be able to return. It's kind of a pain tolerance thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I used to have a saying is you can always talk about pain because it never shows up on an x-ray.
Sure.
So... hey, if the player has pain or discomfort and he doesn't want to go, if it's a bad matchup, I still hurt. Still hurt, coach. Sorry.
Packers running back Eddie Lacy has an ankle injury that has resulted in some missed practice time, but he's still actually more likely to play in Week 6 than backup James Starks, who's dealing with an injury of his own. I feel bad for the suckers that went out there and grabbed James Starks off the waiver wire this week.
Yeah, whoops. But it's one of those things where Lacy has to go because there's nobody else.
Yeah. For the record, I made sure and made mention when I did the help desk on ESPNDesMoines.com this week. I posted James Starks as I don't feel necessarily very good about him in general. He's not that good.
No, he never was. It was just opportunity.
Bengals running back Jeremy Hill practiced Wednesday despite the fact that his arm was in a sling earlier this week. A shoulder ailment of some type. And they've got the Patriots this week, don't they?
Yeah, it's not going to be a good go for him. Gio is clearly the guy.
Yeah, we'll get to that when I do that matchup here in a bit. Chiefs running back Jamal Charles claims the training wheels are coming off this weekend at Oakland.
I am super excited.
We will talk about Jamal Charles later on in the show. Dolphins running back Arian Foster should be back in the lineup this week. Maybe.
I get 2 running backs in our league back.
I don't want to hear
Charles
about it.
and him.
The rich get richer. The Lions have signed free agent running back Justin Forsett, as Brian alluded to. Obviously excited about that. Tight end Eric Ebron, though, expected to miss at least a couple more weeks with his ankle and knee injuries. Bengals tight end Tyler Eifert's back injury not considered serious. He could play in Week 6, but is listed as questionable. Steelers tight end Ladarius Green expects to return to the lineup as soon as next week. I don't know how I feel about that. I honestly
don't care.
I don't care either. We talk about the SleeperBot app quite a bit on this show and what big fans we are of the SleeperBot app. I've been offering some analysis on the fantasy alert section of that app lately, and I put out there that Green, in my opinion, is not even rosterable. I wouldn't even bother with him. And people jumped all over me about that.
Well, there's a perfectly capable tight end. It's not like...
That's what I said.
It's not like Ladarius Green is Tony Gonzalez.
No. In fact, he never could usurp an aging Antonio Gates in San Diego. He was never given, that much of an opportunity. But when Gates went down with injury, Green did virtually nothing with that. So, I know they paid him a bunch of money. And generally, I will tell you to follow the money, and you'll see who gets the playing time. They're paying him like $20 million over the next 4 years. But
not for long, they won't.
Coming off of an injury that took way too long to come back from, and then there was all that concussion talk, and the Steelers are refuting, and I don't know. It's just a big mess, so I say stay away. That's what I say. You can laugh at me all you want. Cowboys quarterback Tony Romo's vertebra has healed completely. Could come back after the Cowboys bye week. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones said the team won't take any chances with Dez Bryant, but he did practice Wednesday. That is of note. Cardinals quarterback Carson Palmer cleared of the league's concussion protocol, so he starts this week. Panthers quarterback Cam Newton returned to practice Wednesday. He's expected to play Sunday. Broncos quarterback Trevor Siemian likely to be under center as the team's starter tonight. Browns quarterback Josh McCown returned to practice this week, but it sounds like Cody Kessler is going to get another start. And Steelers wide receiver Sammy Coates has what they're calling a sizable cast on his left hand. That's pretty significant.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. I wonder if he just jammed it. It sounds like it's more than more than an immobilization method, but we'll know Friday morning.
Indeed. That is nerve-wracking, though, seeing as he was like everybody's top waiver pickup this week. If you hadn't grabbed him previous to this past week, he's gone now, that's for sure. The team signed free agent Carlos Williams to their practice squad. Not worth rostering just yet, but we'll see what shakes down in that Steelers backfield. Reports are Ravens wide receiver Steve Smith won't play this weekend against the Giants. Keep an eye on that injury report because we know Steve Smith, even if the doctors say he ain't playing, maybe he'll wake up and say, oh, I'm playing. And you ain't stopping me.
And then he takes his Centrum Silver and goes out in his walker.
Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll says he expects Tyler Lockett to play a bigger role in Week 6. We'll talk about him in a little bit. And Chargers corner Brandon Flowers not yet cleared of the league's concussion protocol. Add that to Jason Verrett losing him for the rest of the season. And the Chargers are not looking good in terms of their secondary for the at least the next week. It's looking pretty bad. Stick around. We're going to jump right into the matchups here shortly. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard every Thursday between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. on 1350 a.m. ESPN Radio in Des Moines, Iowa. You can also get the show on iTunes and on Stitcher and online at espndesmoines.com. My name's Andy Hall. That's Brian Eichenberry. Over 40 years of combined fantasy experience between the two of us. Domination continues in 2016.
Lock and load, baby.
That's right. Now's as good a time as any to mention, while we mentioned iTunes, Stitcher, and other places, you can get the the podcast. I wish we had an app. How cool would that be? But yeah, we ask that you please help us out, rate and review the show. If you dig what we do here, you think we offer up some pretty decent intel that helps your team out, we love hearing the stories, but we'd really love it if you could share on iTunes, Stitcher, and other places. Rate and review the show. It really helps in terms of our visibility so more people can find us.
You can even it's 2 or 3 clicks on your phone while you're listening or on your computer. Click it, give us the stars you deserve, and just put love you.
Someday I will have an app.
There's an app for that.
I hear they're very expensive.
If you design for Droid, it's about 3 times more expensive than it is for Apple.
Yep, I've also heard that
Terrible.
too. It's crazy. All right, into the matchups we jump, and we begin with Thursday Night Football. Brian, you have the honors.
We are going to start off, obviously, Thursday night, Broncos at San
what
Diego.
I just said.
That is what you just said, because someone's paying attention here.
Jeez, wake up, Brian.
Quarterback Trevor Siemian sounds like he's going to go B. He is officially listed as questionable, but I think he's going to be good to go. So I'm going to give him a B. Not expecting too much, but the Chargers, as you just heard, are down 2 cornerbacks now. So that secondary is on their heels. He should have an average day, especially with the run support. Running back C.J. Anderson, B+. Even though the Chargers have the 8th best run defense, the injuries are too much at this point. I would expect Anderson to have his breakout game of the year this week, unless running back Devontae Booker gets more and more of his time. So keep an eye on that. If you are thinking of a stash, he may be the one to go. Wide receiver Demaryius Thomas is going to get a B here. He has had an issue being consistent in your lineup. You might get a low score, you may get a high score, you may get something in between, you don't know. I definitely believe he is going to get a good game this week. He's probably going to get double covered, but it's okay. Screen pass, got it. So I'm going to give Demaryius Thomas a B. The reason I'm giving him a B is because I'm giving Emmanuel Sanders a B+. Watching him start out, we'd all kind of written him off, but if you look at his stats as they progress through the season, he is getting better and better and better. He nearly has identical stats with Demaryius Thomas, over 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. I expect him to have the better game because of the defense rolling to Demaryius Thomas, as these new cornerbacks in secondary are getting less and less experienced the farther they go down after the injuries.
Sanders, by the way, is the clear target leader.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's being targeted way more than DT is.
Yep, it's pretty awesome. I like it, except I don't own him this year.
I have no stock whatsoever in Emmanuel Sanders, and I feel terrible about it.
Me neither. It sucks. There is no tight end of value on the Broncos either. All 3 tight ends over 5 games have 11 total receptions. They are in the market for a tight end. Maybe they can get Ladarius Green. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they're going to take on that much money.
And probably not for that
I would
cash,
not
no.
eat that contract. No way.
Under the Chargers side of the ball, quarterback Phillip Rivers, B-. The Broncos are decimating and frustrating opponents' QBs with their 3rd best pass defense. I do not expect Rivers to have a big game, but may scrap together 250 and 2. Running back Melvin Gordon. Oh, this guy's going to go bonkers. I'm giving him an A. He is the only A in my matchup out of this breakdown. Gordon is proving he is one of the better running backs of the year and likely snagged him late in your draft. So a lot of people were looking him over, looking like a champ right now. Broncos have allowed 115 yards per game on the ground. Gordon has over 407 touchdowns combined.
Yeah, they're not nearly as dominant against the run as they are the pass.
No, not at all.
Did you notice, by the way, last week, like Matt Ryan turned out pretty decent day for him, and the Falcons, of course, beat the Broncos, which was a big win for them. But he only completed 15 passes all of last game against
Really?
them. Yeah. So he ended up with a decent stat day, but like literally looking at it deeper, 15 completions in a whole game. That's
terrible.
crazy.
So on wide receiver Travis Benjamin, B-, likely going to pull coverage from Aqib Talib, and I don't think he's been that great anyways. So I would just kind of stay away. If you have some better options for Benjamin this year or this week, go ahead and do so. Wide receiver Tyrell Williams, B. He has the bigger upside because he doesn't have Aqib Talib on him, so that's always good. Also, he has about 40 yards less than Travis Benjamin, so there's not a big gap out of production out of those guys. Also, wide receiver Dontrell Inman is going to get a C. Technically, he's the number 2, but he is definitely not performing as much. So I would expect him to kind of get passed by Tyrell Williams on the depth chart. And the tight end, I can't start either Gates or Henry with confidence because their sharing time is splitting and there's no clear-cut answer to that. Really.
Yeah, and in a matchup like that, you can't really bank on one or the other.
Nope.
Denver's very good against opposing tight ends. San Francisco at Buffalo is my first matchup. Start with the Niners quarterback Colin Kaepernick. I'm going to leave him on the bench. If you're starting him, you're living on a prayer or living La Vida Loca or maybe just Loco. The Bills have only allowed 2 passing scores all year, and even if Cap contributes something with his feet, it won't be enough to save your squad from certain annihilation. Running back Carlos Hyde, I'll give him a B grade. I'm not in love with the whole setup, truth be told. The fact that he's traveling to the East Coast for an early Sunday game, the fact that a new quarterback's under center, the fact that the Bills only allow 3.5 yards per carry, not much to see here, right? Wrong. Hyde is actually tied for the league lead in rushing touchdowns with Melvin Gordon, has scored in 4 of 5 games, and averages over 75 yards per game on the ground, plus contributes some in the short passing game. So there's actually hope that, given the requisite amount of volume, Carlos Hyde could produce for your squad. Wide receiver Jeremy Curley, a C+. He's Kaepernick's best bet to get a passing touchdown on Sunday. He's averaging 9 targets per game, on pace for nearly 1,000 yards receiving and 6 to 7 touchdowns. Great flex option, especially in PPR leagues. Essentially, he's this year's Willie Snead, really, is what he is. Wide receiver Torrey Smith, I'll give a C grade to. We know Kaepernick can throw the ball a long way, but can Smith get behind a Bills secondary that has only allowed 2 touchdowns to opposing pass catchers? Our bet is no. Tight end Vance McDonald, a B-. Besides Curley, McDonald is our favorite Niners pass catcher, should be Kaepernick's safety valve and favorite red zone target if San Fran can get there. That's a big if. Over to the Bills side, quarterback Tyrod Taylor, a B. The Niners limit opposing passers to small-ish yardage totals, but have allowed 10 passing touchdowns over the first 5 games. Taylor, like Kaepernick, can help you out with some rushing yards, and against the league's 31st ranked run defense, he just might. Running back LaShawn McCoy, an A. A top 5 play this week at the running back position. McCoy has had incredible success against these NFC West teams early on this season, and now he gets to go up against the worst, or one of the worst run defenses in the league. Only thing that can cap his ceiling is the presence of Mike Gillislee, and I'm giving Gillislee a C grade. He's been known to vulture a TD or 2 from Shady once they get inside the 10-yard line. Because of that and the fact that the Bills may get way up and decide at some point to rest McCoy, Gillislee is in play this week. He was nearly my bargain bin pick, in fact. Wide receiver Robert Woods, a B grade, averaging just over 6 targets per game. Woods is Buffalo's de facto wide receiver 1. He'll get the looks before any of the other no-name pass catchers. If the Niners on average allow 2 passing touchdowns per game to opposing pass catchers, we're willing to bet Woods comes down with 1 on Sunday. Wide receiver Marquise Goodwin, a C grade, desperation flex option only. Wide receiver Justin Hunter, also a C grade. He caught a TD pass on his very first opportunity as a Buffalo Bill. Did virtually nothing else, of course, but he did
Nothing.
score a touchdown. Tight end Charles Clay, a B grade, not flashy by any means, but he's capable of getting the job done when his number is called. San Fran has allowed the 11th most yardage to opposing tight ends, and he has brought in 12 catches for 120 yards in the past 2 games. His arrow continues to point northward with Sammy Watkins out of the lineup.
On to the Eagles-Skins, the NFC matchup. You know what that means? There's going to be penalty flags and ejections all over the place. Can't wait. Quarterback Carson Wentz, he's going to get a B this week. He's averaging 250 yards a game. He has 7 touchdowns. And that one interception he finally threw in the Lions' den, how will he bounce back from being responsible for the loss? I think he's not going to bounce back very well. Back-to-back road games, and it's a divisional opponent. It's tough on a rookie. I think it's going to take his toll on him. He's going to take that one personally. He's going to try a little hard. Running back Ryan Matthews, B-. Running back position here is tough. Matthew has 4 TDs, so that's his upside. But it appears that the running back situation is really rolling the dice in terms of yardage between Matthews and Sproles. Combined yardage, not just their wide receiver Jordan Matthews, B. We know what he's capable of, the big play capabilities. Him and Wentz do seem to have some sort of chemistry, and he has 70 yards per game. So Matthews is going to get a B. DGB and Nelson Aguilar are both getting C pluses. Both have less than 50 yards per game. These guys are not even a dice roll. In my opinion, there are safer bets across the board. Not saying they can't do something, but consistently they're not. It's better to roll a running back or tight end, especially in this Eagles offense. So I'm not high on DGB or Aguilar starting them in your offense. Tight end Zach Ertz, B+. Skins defense is bad. Ertz is just getting warmed up, and there's going to be better play. He is the better play than DGB or Aguilar. Onto the Redskins side of the ball, quarterback Kirk Cousins, B+. He does have good yardage this year, but the interceptions are the issues. So as he gains you points, he's also losing you points. He's averaging a pick a game. He is getting really good at spreading the ball around, and now that he's going to be focusing on Deshaun Jackson, that's a little bit better. Wide receiver, skipping your favorite Matt Jones. See, you just
might as well just not talk about
it. I guess so. B-, 370 yards combined through 5 games, and is declining against strong defenses. The Skins may be playing from behind in this game, so likely he's going to be airing the ball out. Wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, B+. You heard why. Their coach is going to give him the ball more. He is their biggest playmaker. And with Jordan Reed on the fence, he's the only one out there who's got that breakaway 80-yard capability, as long as he doesn't throw the ball away before he gets into the end zone. Wide receiver Pierre Garcon, B, 230 and 1 right now. Garcon, he's been getting the deep looks, but he's just not there. It's frustrating to see these guys not being able to come through. Jamison Crowder, I think he's the better value pick here. You likely got him off the waiver wire. He is the ascending option, and 240 and 2 touchdown compared to Deshaun Jackson's 278 and 1. Considering the value and the chance he's available, Crowder is my pick for your flex spot. And Jordan Reed, you heard it. He's in that protocol. We don't know if he's going to go yet or not. If he does, I like it, B+. If not, just you're going to have to watch it.
Carson Wentz has been very impressive through the first 4 games of the season for the Eagles. I had a guy ask me a question of, who do you like better rest of season? Who's more valuable, Carson Palmer or Carson Wentz? Which Carson do you like better? I did a thorough schedule analysis for this guy through the SleeperBot app, and I came up with Carson Wentz over Carson Palmer. Does that sound crazy off the top of your head?
No, giving Palmer's history right now.
It was pretty in-depth.
I
was surprised myself, yeah. More matchups still to come with Brian and myself, including the game that nobody will be watching outside of the cities of Cleveland and Nashville on Sunday. Cleveland at Tennessee. Coming next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show. Stick around. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday on ESPN in Des Moines, Iowa, 1350 a.m. on the dial. We are also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eichenberry. Back into the matchups, beginning with Cleveland at Tennessee. 2 teams that have no fan bases outside of their cities.
Boring.
First, the Browns. Quarterback Cody Kessler, going to leave him on the bench. I'm not interested. I might be slightly more when Josh McCown is back under center. Running back Isaiah Crowell, I'll give a B- to here. Facing a relatively tough Titans defense this week that give up only 4.2 yards per carry on average have only allowed 2 rushing scores on the year. The crow really flies when Cleveland is competitive and the game isn't out of hand. If he reaches 20 touches, you know he's likely having a productive day. Running back Duke Johnson, a C+. He hasn't seen the usage he enjoyed in 2015 yet. It may take getting McCown healthy and back under center for that to happen. Still, he's an interesting flex option, if nothing else, particularly in full PPR leagues. Wide receiver Terrell Pryor, a B-. The Titans give up 238 yards per game to opposing pass catchers, an average of 1 touchdown through the air. If any one Browns player has a real shot at grabbing one this week, it's probably Pryor, who is the clear-cut targets favorite no matter who's been under center. Wide receiver Andrew Hawkins, I'll give a C grade too. He saw an uptick in targets last week, strictly a possession guy though, with very little upside or chance to see the end zone. Tight end Gary Barnidge, a C+. Like Hawkins, saw increased looks in week 5, which bodes well for his future on your fantasy roster. Perhaps there still is a glimmer of hope for our boy Gary. Over to the Titans side, quarterback Marcus Mariota, a B+. This matchup is great. Mariota coming off a very productive fantasy day, one of his best, in fact, where he finished as the top-scoring quarterback of the week. The Browns allow 288 yards per game through the air, have given up 13 passing touchdowns through 5 games. Mariota threw for 257 yards and 2 touchdowns in the team's 2015 matchup. Running back DeMarco Murray is an A grade. Great matchup for Mariota, super matchup for Murray. Currently among the league leaders in fantasy scoring at the running back position. Get a ton of work here. Likely continue the trend his owners have enjoyed over the past 5 weeks. Running back Derrick Henry, I'll give a C grade too. If Tennessee gets up big early enough, or enough early, I should say, we may see more of the bruising rookie, and if he's given a number of chances, he could turn in a nice fantasy day, but it's a bit risky. Wide receiver Andre Johnson, a B grade. In 5 prior matchups against the Browns dating back to 2005, he has never reached the end zone. Considering the pedigree and the storied history of one Andre Johnson, particularly during his time in Houston, that's a crazy statistic, don't you think? Does he break the streak now when virtually everyone has written him off? I say he does.
Ooh.
I bet he scores now when nobody cares. Wide receiver Tajay Sharp, a C+. He's been extremely unimpressive, more games than he has not. He's worth maybe a dart throw if you need it, but that's best case scenario. Tight end Delaney Walker, an A grade, one of the most targeted players in the league at his position. Walker, when healthy, should always be in your starting lineup in tight end mandatory leagues, regardless of scoring format.
All right, on to the Ravens-Giants. Quarterback Joe Flacco, B. With the new offensive coordinator change, clarity in the backfield, I will be optimistically observing this situation. Flacco is barely over 200 a game, so let's hope for the best here, but he's on my bench as a precaution. You never know what's going to happen with a new OC week 1. That being said, out of the other side of my mouth, running back Terrence West is going to get a B+. Likely the starter heading into this week, clearly. Dixon only had 1 carry last week. If you need to go ahead, just get one last start out of him while you can. I think as Kenneth Dixon warms up, West will be going down. But in a time of uncertainty, always bet on the running back. He's averaging 5 yards per carry, so I guess that's something for old Terrence West. Wide receiver Mike Wallace, B+. Looking for Wallace here to be on the uptick with Steve Smith likely out. I believe he's going to be out. He's going to get more looks downfield. Caution, though, he did have a no-contact jersey on during practice on Wednesday and has not had a touchdown since week 2. So a little caution on Mike Wallace, but I'm up on him this week. Wide receiver Bashard Perriman's going to get the B. It's his chance to shine. If he can step up, make the big plays, he might nudge Steve Smith a little out.
Man, we've been waiting for so long for that guy to do something.
He's got the Mike Evans from last year. He just keeps dropping balls. They hit him in the hands and he just drops them. I don't know if it's the speed, if Flacco's some superstar sniper throwing the ball here, but he just drops them. I watched the game and it's very frustrating. Tight end Dennis Pitta. You know what? It's Pitta time, baby. He's gonna get an A at the Pitta Pit.
Oh, jeez.
He should start his own Pitta chain and do the Pitta Pit.
Gross.
Yeah, Pitta Pitas. Pitas.
All right, Brian.
All right, I'm all excited now. I'm hungry.
I'm surprised you got that out without stumbling all over yourself.
The tight end spot, Pitta's getting an A, and the flex, I think he's B. I think it's one of those games where he's the constant. You know, if there's a constant on this roster, it's Pitta, and given the changes, I'm going to go with Pitta. Quarterback Eli, I like saying it. It's
Just enough of that already.
know,
Move
it's
on to the
fun.
next team, will
it's
ya?
fun. All right,
Good
fine.
God.
All right, let's do the Giants here. This ought to be fun. Quarterback Eli Manning. Unfortunately, I want to give him a bad grade, but I think he's going to get the B+. Ravens have that stingy defense.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They have that stingy defense, 5th best in passing. Eli should be a good stress test for that defense. They haven't been playing exactly big stellar studs, but
It's a very good point.
so here's the thing. We'll get to it in the wide receivers, but it's not going to be to one Odell Beckham.
Oh.
Ooh. So the running back situations, they're C's. It's the Giant. No running back ever succeeds in New York. Just move on. You got Rashad Jennings, listed as questionable. Darkwa, he's got 76 yards
All right,
per
dude.
game. So Odell Beckham Jr., B-. Look, if I'm the Ravens secondary, I am giving him a very, very hard time. I am going to give him an extra chip shot. And
My dog farted.
it's terrible.
It is so bad right now. My home studio where I from now on I'm not allowing my dog in here. Go ahead.
All right. So
He can't do it, can you? Can't finish the matchup. Old Ollie stunk the place up. How about you do this? Put your shirt over your nose like I'm doing right now. The microphone will pick you up just fine.
oh, lordy.
It'll be a matter of whether or not you can get through it without laughing.
So OBJ's a B-.
So I had my meltdown last year when you mentioned this quick dumps thing, and now this year my dog farts, and you're done, aren't you? Should we move on?
Sterling Shepard's going to get a B. He's averaging 12.6 per game.
Such professionals we are. It doesn't smell anymore. It's gone.
Okay. Sterling Shepard's got 2 touchdowns. OBJ is going to be stressed. He's going to be mad. He might even get ejected, and the coaches are threatening to bench him. That's not a good situation. So if I'm a Shepard owner, I'm looking for him to put up better numbers than OBJ. I think OBJ is reaching his breaking point, and it's coming on pretty fast. Wide receiver Victor Cruz, B-. So if you add all these up, you add the Sterling Shepards, you add the Victor Cruz, you add some pass-catching running backs here. That's how you get to Eli's B+. It's all stuff not going to OBJ. And Victor Cruz, he is that statistical anomaly. Everyone's wrote him off. He's going to get 60 yards and a touchdown guaranteed.
All right, Carolina at New Orleans while Brian gets it together. Start on the Panthers side, quarterback Cam Newton is an A grade. The Saints traditionally been viewed as an opposing quarterback's best-case scenario. They've been respectable, even though their secondary has been decimated by injury. Currently ranking 15th against opposing passers, allowing just over 300 passing yards per game, a total of 5 scores on the year. Newton poses that dual threat as a passer and, of course, a runner, where he's unstoppable inside the 5-yard line. Assuming he's cleared of the league's concussion protocol in time for kickoff on Sunday, and I think he will be, he's a great start for Week 6. Running back Jonathan Stewart, a B grade. The Saints are about as average a run defense as there is in the NFL. They allow a little over 120 yards per game, have yielded a total of 8 rushing scores on the season. Stewart, assuming he's back in the lineup Sunday, should be in for a heavy workload, but as always, no guarantee to find the end zone with a multitude of other runners capable of vulturing those scores. Running back Fozzie Whitaker, a C grade. He'll continue to be involved as a pass catcher, but Newton will be looking a lot more toward his wide receivers and tight end in this matchup. Wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin, the easy A grade. Saints have nobody that can stop him. Philly Brown, a C+. At best, he's Newton's 3rd or 4th option. Borderline flex play in desperation mode. Ted Ginn, a C grade. Big play threat, but 2 boomer busts to depend on. And tight end Greg Olsen is your A grade. As good as it gets at the tight end position, Olsen always delivers. Now on to the Saints. Quarterback Drew Brees, an A grade. At home against a defense that's been trending in the wrong direction of late. One of the top plays of the week at the quarterback position is Drew Brees. Mark Ingram, a C+. Panthers front 7 been very good versus the run thus far, only allowing 3.4 yards per carry, total of 4 rushing scores. Ingram looks to touch the ball 15 to 20 times here, but unless he reaches the end zone, will largely disappoint. Brandon Cooks, a B+. Mike Evans, Julio Jones, and Torrey Smith have all torched the young and unproven Carolina secondary. Cooks has enough speed and shiftiness to get behind coverage and get open for Drew Brees to find him deep at least once. Willie Snead, a B grade. He's still nursing that toe injury, but you got to love Willie Snead. Michael Thomas, a C grade, showing up more in the box score as he continues to learn this offense and get more comfortable. but I don't know if I would count on him just yet. And Kobe Fleener, a C+. As long as Snead is active and in the lineup, Fleener should be a low-end tight end 2 option. 2 to 5 targets per game maybe, and every once in a while a scoring chance. Pretty bleak there. Back with more matchups here in a bit. We'll watch Brian cringe as I go through the Detroit Lions matchup this week.
Oh, nothing but A's.
This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio. You're listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio, also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Before the end of this show, we're going to throw at you our bargain bin picks of the week. 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 pass catcher from each of us that chances are you can find on your waiver wire. Pick right up, throw into your lineup, and expect a decent amount of fantasy production from. We also have that pop quiz looming large here. One more segment away from that. We'll see how Brian does this week. You went 2 for 3 last week, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah, not quite 3 for 3, though.
Oh, we had that bet. Darn.
That's exactly right. All right, back into the matchups, Brian.
Starting with the Jaguars at the Bears here. Quarterback Blake Bortles, B. Average rated QB, 250 yards per game, going against an average pass defense. Bad thing about him is he has 6 interceptions to 7 touchdowns, and clearly not a good ratio, so stay away. Running back Chris Ivory, TJ Yeldon. Does anybody want to dominate a backfield anytime soon?
Nope, apparently not. And that offensive line is doing them no favors.
Terrible idea. Bench. Wide receiver Allen Robinson, B. A-Rob here may be getting going soon. He has 3 touchdowns, but 238 yards is still the issue for me, so Allen Robinson's B. Wide receiver Allen Hurns, B-. Hurns is supposed to gain as A-Rob falls, but he has fallen off the backside here of this depth chart and is averaging under 60 yards per game. It may be time to start shopping him and hope others bite on him based on name recognition.
Or maybe just grab Marquise Lee off the waiver wire.
Or you could grab Marquise Lee off the waiver wire, B-. Marquise Lee, I believe, is starting to emerge higher than Hurns, so I'm expecting him to be able to contribute in those ways that Hurns cannot this year. Tight end Julius Thomas, B-. He has slightly more yards than Marquise Lee, but neither are a high-grade materials as of right now. On to the Bears side, quarterback Brian Hoyer, B. While Hoyer has been playing well, this may be his average night of production with the Jags are 7th in pass defense. For some reason, that statistic blew me away. I had no idea.
You'll hear more about that later.
Oh, fantastic. Running back Jordan Howard, A. Over 400 yards combined, and he's doing very well. It's basically his job forever now. Start with confidence against the middle-of-the-road run defense in Jacksonville. Wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey, B-. Listed as questionable and has a tough matchup. Not liking his chances. I believe there will be more action on the ground as everyone else is going to be hurt. Triple coverage to Jeffrey. Wide receiver Cameron Meredith. You're like, what? Is those 2 real names together?
The only people that knew he existed were his family.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. B. Flying under the radar in most games and actually on most rosters in most leagues.
Sure, he's running Kevin White's routes.
Yeah, absolutely. He benefits from the coverage rolling to Alshon Jeffrey. Eddie Royal, he's questionable, so watch it. I like Meredith better than Royal since he's the old man and busted at this point. Tight end Zach Miller, B. Listed as questionable as well, which everybody on the Bears roster is. But he has 3 touchdowns, so if he's playing Sunday, he may be worth the go.
The Los Angeles Rams head to the Motor City to take on Brian's Detroit Lions. When the Rams have the ball, quarterback Case Keenum, I'll give a C grade to. Despite facing a Lions defense that has allowed a league-high 14 passing touchdowns, I just can't bring myself to endorse starting Keenum, despite his completion percentage on the increase here over the past couple of games. Something to keep an eye on anyway. Running back Todd Gurley, an A-. This could easily be a 30-touch game for Gurley, whose owners have been steadily plucking hairs from atop their increasingly balding heads. Were you eagerly awaiting a true breakout performance from your first-round pick? I think I sound like a medication or something, a commercial. Does it have side effects? This is the week you've been waiting for, Gurley owners, against the Lions' 23rd ranked run defense that, oddly enough, has yet to give up a rushing touchdown. That changes this week, by the way.
Like a boss.
Wide receiver Brian Quick, a B-. Of the Rams pass catchers, I think Quick has shown himself to be the guy with the highest ceiling, albeit it's not that high, but a downfield threat. His downfall has actually been his inconsistent target numbers. Wide receiver Kenny Britt, a C+. How old is Kenny Britt? We posed the question last week. I've looked this up because it feels like he's been in the league forever, like the Colts' Frank Gore. Brian, you care to guess?
35.
Okay. He's 28.
What?
I know, right?
He started playing when he was 12?
That's what I was thinking. He's only 28. Despite feeling as though he's the ancient one, Britt continues to see a decent amount of targets and receptions and could break through again in a plus matchup like this one. Wide receiver Tavon Austin, a C grade, far too inconsistent for my liking, but if you're desperate for a flex, Austin has the speed and the ability to score on any given touch. On the Lions side, quarterback Matthew Stafford, a B grade. He'd be an easy A grade if it weren't for his massive inconsistency through the first 5 games. The Rams were a middle-of-the-road defense against opposing passers until they lost their stud corner Trumaine Johnson to a high ankle sprain last week. Now they're simply the equivalent of the island of misfit toys. I'm expecting a top 10 week out of the Lions passing game, but I've been proven wrong before. Running back Theo Riddick, a B grade. Granted, Riddick isn't built for the between-the-tackles smash-mouth football, but given the lack of depth at the running back position in Detroit, he's been given multiple opportunities in addition to his recurring role as a pass-catching specialist, a role that he has surpassed expectation this year. The Rams are not good against the run. They're 29th in the league at present, allowing over 122 yards per game to the position, total of 5 touchdowns. Consider Riddick a mid-tier running back 2 this week with some upside. Zach Zenner, a C+ here, depending on the status of both Dwayne Washington, who missed practice Wednesday, and Riddick, who actually also sat out with an ankle injury. Zenner could be one of the last men standing, unless, of course, free agent signing Justin Forsett is ready for action, which I find highly unlikely at this point, but stranger things have happened. Marvin Jones, I'll give him a B grade. Despite a decrease in targets and production the past few weeks, the NFL's yardage leader at the wide receiver position should be back up and running against a banged-up Rams secondary in Week 6. Golden Tate, a C+. Patience is running razor thin from his owners. Can Tate turn this thing around, and if so, when will he begin to produce as we expected him to when we draft him as a wide receiver 2 in many of our drafts back in August? Given the nature of the Rams secondary, which is currently depleted due to injury, and the fact that LA's defensive front is dealing with issues of its own, Tate has a sporting chance here, but admittedly it takes some guts to plug him in and feel good about it these days. Hi, Brian.
Oh, am I up now? Sorry.
That's it. There is no Eric Ebron.
All right. Hey, so we're going to do the Steelers at the Dolphins. Quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, obvious A here, the number 3 ranked passing attack, averaging a hair under 300 yards per game and 3 touchdowns per game. One of the hosts said Big Ben was not going to be anything this year.
Oh, I didn't say that. I just said, look at his numbers. He's never been over, 32 passing touchdowns ever in his career.
Yeah.
So I didn't think that was really, they weren't Drew Brees-like numbers.
It's
just saying.
It's okay.
It's not over yet.
Hey, well, we'll see.
Terrible things could happen.
Running back Le'Veon Bell, 2 games back, he's averaging 100 on the ground and 50 in the air per game. He's just fine. Running back D'Angelo Williams, I'm going to give a B- to. Yeah, that's right, B-. Still going to get action. He runs just as hard as Bell does. And, oh, by the way, they're playing the Dolphins, so hey, I would expect a good mix. D'Angelo Williams is going to get some yards. Wide receiver Antonio Brown, A, always going to be an A, keeps rocking. He's averaging a touchdown per game. Sammy Coates, you heard about it, big cast. I'm scared. You're scared. Everybody's scared, but who knows? That thing could just be to immobilize something. He might have like some tendonitis or something. But if he has a go, I'm still going to give the guy a B+. B+ because his targets are going up, and he is getting some big catches, and it has me very upset as an Antonio Brown owner.
Yeah, 40 yards plus downfield, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, not happy about that. Wide receiver Marcus Wheaton, he's getting a B. Seemingly taking a back seat as Coates comes on, so it's going to be interesting to see how this develops over the next 2 weeks. Tight end Jesse James, I'm all for the guy. He is boomer bust right now on your fantasy roster. He's doing just fine. He's going to be around for a while, so don't be scared about the activation of another tight end in the coming future. Quarterback Ryan Tannehill on the Dolphins side of the ball, B-. I tried to give him a boost. I always wanted to bump him up, but he is playing that Steelers poorest secondary right now. I still have no confidence. He will have volume, but it may be just as many interceptions as touchdowns. Running back Arian Foster, B-. Bad day to come back against the Steelers. Very, very good run defense. He may have a decent game, but it's risky right now. They're going to be probably playing from behind all night, so it's probably not going to go in his favor. Running back Jay Ajayi, I'm going to give him a C+. We never know what's going to happen. Jarvis Landry, B+. I like him. He's always been there. He gets a lot of action. They're going to be playing from behind. He's going to get tons of targets. Look for the garbage time points. So don't start cursing us out at the second quarter. Wait till the end of the fourth.
That's good advice.
Yeah, it is. Garbage time. Kenny Stills is going to get a C+. Devontae Parker, just for you, I'll mention him. I'm going to actually give him a B.
You should.
He's averaging 16.5 yards per catch. We talked about it. They're going to be playing from behind. A lot of passes going to be thrown. Jordan Cameron, still concussion issues, no tight end of value.
Yeah, his career might be over, Jordan Cameron.
Yeah, it sucks. I like the guy.
Yeah, I do too. I like him an awful lot. Be careful with D'Angelo Williams this week too. He's a little bit banged up and has missed some practice time. So just keep an eye on those
everyone's
injury
missing
reports.
practice.
It's
like
true.
the
You
cool
know what?
thing to do.
It does seem like everybody's banged up right
Wednesday
now.
is rest day.
It is for the veterans. A lot of them do get that day off. You're absolutely right about that. All right, friends. 3 of Fantasy's toughest questions going to be fired at young Brian here shortly. The pop quiz is coming up next. Can Brian go 3 for 3? We'll find out on 515 Fantasy Football on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show. Each and every Thursday, you hear this show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, Iowa. You can also get us on iTunes and Stitcher and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. We've reached a very special part of the show in which I have carefully constructed 3 of Fantasy's toughest questions, and we're about to ask them to Brian, who has no idea what's coming his way.
Yeah, I do hear that about, like, are you even trying on these questions? It's literally off the top of my head.
Who asks if you're trying?
Just cholos out there in the real world.
So really, like, our Rube listeners are actually questioning your effort?
Yeah, so like, why wouldn't you say this? Like, look, man, this is like under the gun, no prep, no web sheets to think about.
I like to think I explained that ahead of time.
And it's like you're sitting there, you think about it for 3 hours, then come over to me, you're like, hey, why would you say? It's like, you've thought about it for 3 hours. Of course your answer is going to be different.
Yeah, it's just like, you don't know until you're sitting in that chair.
That's right.
It's like watching a game show on TV. You think you have it all figured out, but if you were up there under the bright lights and, you'd probably screw up too.
Yeah, under the one light and the dog farts.
Brian,
it's stressful in here.
Brian, very rarely does Brian ever go 3 for 3. These are tough questions, granted. All right, let's begin with question number 1. If all goes according to plan, the Chiefs' Jamal Charles will be in the lineup and should expect a normal workload. Setting the over-under at 18 total touches. What do you expect out of Charles this week in Oakland?
Over.
Okay.
I think he is going to get fed. He had his little warm-up. They're good to go. Coming back from the bye. Good and rested. Ready to go. Andy Reid has said it. He has said it. And look at it from Jamal Charles' standpoint. The young buck's breathing down his neck now. He needs to go out and make a statement. And he is going to run angry.
The answer is over. By all accounts, he's as close to 100% as he has been since suffering that knee injury last year and should step right in and enjoy a full complement of carries out of the backfield and receptions as well against the league's 28th ranked run defense that has a real problem slowing dual threat backs like Charles. Because the Raiders' offense is capable of scoring points and they're playing at home, this game should be relatively competitive, allowing Charles to serve as the primary workhorse with Spencer Ware stepping in for a change of pace or in case Charles needs a break from the action. Very well done, Brian.
Yay.
Question number 2. Rest of the season, barring injury, is Pittsburgh's Sammy Coates a wide receiver 1, a wide receiver 2, or a flex in half PPR leagues?
I'm going to go with wide receiver 2 right now, and that's cautiously optimistic. Look, he could. The way Big Ben's throwing it, the way the stats the team is putting up, he could be a wide receiver 1. There could be. But you got to think Antonio Brown's a vocal guy. The more Sammy Coates is picking up passes, he's going to be like, no, you need to keep throwing them this way. I need to get my 12 catches a game. So I will go with wide receiver 2.
Correct answer is wide receiver 1.
Of course.
He currently ranks 13th among all wide receivers with 65.2 fantasy points. That's an average of about 13.04 per week. With Big Ben's big arm, Antonio Brown occupying the majority of pass coverage week to week, and the running game equally dangerous. Oh, and not to mention an offensive line that does a great job keeping Ben upright. Coates, assuming he stays healthy, has a nice schedule upcoming, facing only one top 10 pass defense, the Ravens, in Week 8 and again in Week 16. Otherwise, they've got Miami ranked 18th, New England ranked 20th, Dallas ranked 21st, Cleveland twice, they're ranked 26th, Indy 29th, the Giants 22nd, Buffalo 19th, and Cincy 13th. On his current pace, he should finish with 70 to 75 receptions for over 1,400 yards and 7 to 9 touchdowns. In half PPR leagues, that's approximately 225 fantasy points, and in 2015, that was wide receiver 9, Larry Fitzgerald. In 2014, that was wide receiver 10, Alshon Jeffrey. Wide receiver 1 territory, Brian.
Negative.
Well, I mean, you could go ahead and disagree all you want, but
I will.
you're wrong.
We'll see.
That's how the pop quiz works, buddy. Question number 3. You're so ticked off right now.
I am.
I can just tell.
I am.
Like, I thought I had that one.
Garbage.
All right. Question 3. You're not getting this one either.
Okay.
Tom Brady gave his patient owners 36.7 points in his first game back from suspension at Cleveland. Knowing that he missed 4 of the 13 or 14 games that comprise most fantasy leagues, does Brady finish as a QB1 in 2016?
Of course he does. Absolutely. There's zero doubt in my mind that he will. Oh, by the way, have you seen the 2 tight end set that's reminiscent of
Hernandez
and Gronk? And
I don't
Edelman's
believe it.
getting healthy.
It's
and-
Martellus Bennett. He doesn't score after September 30th.
Yeah, I don't care. I snagged him up, and I'm stashing him because I have Gronk
Smart.
too. So
That's very smart. If there was such a thing as a tight end handcuff, that's it.
yeah, I'm doing it just for injury purposes, but also so nobody else can have him.
We talked about this in the preseason.
Did we?
Handcuffs. We did a segment on handcuffs, and I mentioned the tight end handcuff of Gronk to Bennett.
Well, I have it.
That's
so
awesome. It's actually put into action right here.
Nailed it.
Way to go, Brian. Is that it, or did you have something else?
That was it. I mean, there's
Okay.
no doubt he's going to be a QB1.
The answer is yes. He averaged 29.14 fantasy points per game in 2015 with a high water mark of 37.9, a low of 15.8. He faces a middle-of-the-road gamut of pass defenses between this week versus Cincinnati. They're 13th, and week 14, Baltimore, they are 7th. In between, he sees Pittsburgh, who are 30th, Buffalo 19th, Seattle 1st, San Francisco 12th, the Jets 31st, and LA 16th. Assuming he performs similarly this season in comparison to 2015 and stays healthy, he should finish just inside the top 12 at the quarterback position, making him technically a QB1 despite missing 4 games of potential production. Brian, 2 out of 3 today, pal.
It's not bad. It ain't bad.
I need a sound effect that goes wah, 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 wah.
Why would you do that? I got 3 out of 3.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. Twitter, let me hear it.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity here to go ahead, beg if you want, Brian, but we are available on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter, at 515 Fantasy. I'm on Twitter at Andy Hall Radio. He is on Twitter at Ike FFB. That's IKEFFB. It also should be mentioned that Brian and I contribute on a pretty regular basis to the fine folks at the SleeperBot app, which is available for your free download, no matter what system you operate on. So check them out. They have a couple of different places that we're chipping in. The fantasy alert section, where during the week when alerts come up, it can be sent directly to your phone. And a lot of times you're getting this stuff like way before you get it anywhere else. I mean, these guys are quick. And that's one thing I love about SleeperBot, Brian, is the fact that they're like right on top of it.
And I love it when I recommend it to somebody and say, hey, you need to check out the SleeperBot. You want to stay up to it? Do this. And then I was just having a lunch with a friend. Hey, check this out, man. You know, he's always on the road. He's always traveling. He always misses stuff. It's like, God, I'm having trouble staying up to speed. Get this. Downloads it Thursday, 1 o'clock. He's like, this thing is just blowing up my phone. I'm like, I told you. Thursdays and Sundays, your phone's going to be busy, but look at you. You are making roster moves. You are checking people in and out of your lineup. You are up to speed, and it's awesome.
Indeed. So in that fantasy alerts section, I'm offering my analysis on a number of those stories. You'll find me there as well. And On Sunday mornings, we've been doing something fun in the podcast section of that app, where a bunch of us podcasters, myself included, been getting on there for a couple hours and answering your questions before kickoff. And it's amazing, Brian, how many people are looking for just quick bits of fantasy advice all the way up to kickoff
Yeah, just a
on
total
Sunday.
quick hit. Just get on there, bam, question, boom, you're out. Or you learn a lot just from observing other people's questions.
Mm-hmm.
Watch other people's questions and check out the responses. That's good too.
And while I'm answering, I'm noticing like trends every single week. Like certain players keep popping up again and again and again. Yeah, last week, a lot of Eddie Royal questions, for example.
Yeah, you bet.
Because we were waiting on the game time decision there. So a lot of my advice to people was to, if you can't afford to sit around and wait, you might want to find an alternative and plug them in.
Or you should check your roster like one of the co-hosts did not and had someone started.
Oh, we don't want to talk about that. That team, that team is such a mess right now. Nobody will trade with me either.
No.
And actually, that's a nice tease, isn't it? Because we're going to talk a bit about trading etiquette.
Yes.
A little later on in
we
the
already
show.
did one flea flicker about trading etiquette, but that was about like responding to trades and like talking through it.
Don't ignore
but
them,
this
that
one's
sort
a whole
of thing.
different. This is a whole different cup of soup.
Or ball of wax.
Ball of wax. A whole nother shebang. Ever heard that?
No.
No.
That makes no sense at
An
all.
old wine thing.
Old Wine, Iowa.
Old Wine, Iowa.
All right, folks. Stick around. We're going to jump right back into the matchups here very shortly. I've got a couple in the next segment, including what should be a couple of very high-scoring games, my friend. Stick around. Brian and I will break those down, and not to mention we still have that bargain bin segment on the way. We hit on the flea flicker. That'll wrap up this week's show. We're more than halfway through, friends. Week 6 of fantasy football, 515 Fantasy Football on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines. You can also get us on iTunes and on Stitcher and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Right back into the matchups for Week 6, Cincinnati at New England. We start with the Bengals. Quarterback Andy Dalton, I'll give a C+2. The Patriots are a below-average pass defense, currently ranking 20th against opposing passers. The Belichick MO on the defensive side is to take an opponent's biggest threat away. In the case of Cincy, of course, that's A.J. Green, no question. Dalton has been pretty disappointing thus far, throwing only 5 touchdown passes, 2 of them in garbage time last week. Road game against a Belichick defense, I don't like it. Running back Giovanni Bernard at B grade. I like him best of the Cincy running options, despite the fact that he hasn't done much historically against New England. The reason I give him an edge, though, over Jeremy Hill is his skill set as a pass catcher. The Bengals figure to be down early and throughout this game, and since much of the focus will likely be on A.J. Green in terms of coverage, Bernard may have himself a decent game here. Jeremy Hill, a C grade. The Patriots have only allowed a total of 2 rushing touchdowns through 5 games. You can't like Hill's chances of reaching pay dirt here. A.J. Green, a B grade. The last time Green visited Gillette Stadium was 2014. He caught 5 passes for 81 yards and a touchdown. He has that kind of potential, but it's always wise when your stud is facing the Patriots to expect the defensive game plan will be to shut that stud down at all costs. How good is A.J. Green? Yeah, his upside, probably his ceiling here, is that 5 passes, 81 yards, and a touchdown. Brandon LaFell, a C+. He also scored the last time he played New England as a member of the Carolina Panthers back in 2013. He may be targeted a bunch, but I'm not holding my breath and hoping for a touchdown. Aside from a couple garbage time scores last week, hasn't been a threat to score at all, Brandon LaFell. Tyler Eifert, interesting. We don't know whether he's going to play for sure or not. If he does play, I think that changes a lot of things for the Bengals. I think that they can go to him and will go to him because I think A.J. Green, no matter if Eifert's playing or not, A.J. Green will be their focus. So if Eifert's playing, that kind of changes the complexion of the whole game for me, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Touchdowns.
When the Patriots have the ball, Tom Brady an A grade, despite holding quarterbacks to an average of only 225 passing yards per game. The Bengals have allowed a total of 11 passing touchdowns on the season. Brady has a stable of weapons to which he can throw, is capable of a huge fantasy day no matter the opponent. When he faced the Bengals in October of 2014 in Foxborough, he threw for 292 and 2. Not exactly rusty, as he put it, after his 400-plus yard performance last week. Running back LeGarrette Blount, a B-. He's tied for third in the category of running back touchdowns with 5. However, Brady's return last week led to less field time, a season-low 39%, versus Kevin White, who was on the field for a season-high 48%. So actually, White was on the field more than Blount was. A bit concerning that despite a game in which game script clearly favored New England throughout, Blount wasn't fed as he had been the 4 previous games, and it all happened when Brady came back. Kevin White, I'll give a C+ to. Between now and the return of Dion Lewis, which could happen as soon as Week 8, but more likely will occur after that Patriots Week 9 bye, I've got a close eye on White and his usage and touch numbers. Chris Hogan, a B+. He's had some concussion issues. Hopefully he plays this week because I think he's a great play. He's been on my radar for as a big-time sleeper for weeks, but only last week we were able to, for the first time, see how Hogan truly fits into this offense with Brady under center, and the future looks very bright for a guy with elusive speed and the ability to beat many corners and safeties deep. Julian Edelman, a B grade here, always good for a decent number of targets. We'll see if some of them start to occur inside the 10-yard line, as he has sort of become known for in seasons past. Rob Gronkowski, an A grade. He last week gave his owners an opportunity to breathe a massive sigh of relief. He'll be just fine as long as his injuries don't flare up. Martellus Bennett, a B- here. Week 5 was clearly an outlier, at least in my opinion. Look at Bennett's history. He's never been known for scoring touchdowns after September. But that's not to say he doesn't have value. Gronk will always garner additional attention, leaving Bennett many times as wide open as he was on some of those routes last week. And boy, was he wide open.
Oh, it was disgusting as a Gronk owner watching those touchdowns go bye-bye. On to the Chiefs-Raiders. Quarterback Alex Smith, B+. Is this his breakout game of the year? He always has one big doozy that makes you want to go, oh, I got to start this guy all the time. I think this is it. It's an average pass game against the worst defense. I'm going to give him a B+. Running back Jamal Charles, A. He says his training wheels are off. It's his job to fight for. I expect him to be angry and a very hungry Jamal Charles this Sunday. Start with confidence, my children. Running back Spencer Ware.
Creepy.
Yeah. Drink my Kool-Aid.
My children, come to my van with no windows.
That's right. Get in the van. I have candy. Running back Spencer Ware, B-. So here's the thing. If the Chiefs are up and comfortable, Spencer Ware is going to start getting some time to rest Jamal Charles a little bit. They probably don't want to push him too much. If the game's competitive, it's all Charles all the time. As it gets out of hand, if the Chiefs are up, expect Spencer Ware to get some action. Wide receiver Jeremy Maclin. I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm going to give him a B+. Wow. Same situation as Alex Smith. This is his 100-yard game and a touchdown. So if you did draft him, he's on your lineup. Put him in there. If he's not going to do it this game, he's not going to do it at all. So fire away on the Oakland's defense. Wide receiver Tyreek Hill, C+. Chris Conley is C+ as well. These other guys are crapshoot. History shows that they are up and down, just like a Rams receiver. So try not to get on the bandwagon too quick. Tight end Travis Kelce. Can't talk today. B+. We're expected to see moderate coverage, and he's probably going to be the one to get in there. He's averaging 10 yards per catch right now for a tight end. That's pretty decent, and does have 2 touchdowns. I expect him to add to that this Sunday. Quarterback Derek Carr on the Raiders side of the ball, A. He's kind of unstoppable when you look at his stats. He has 11 touchdowns, 2 picks, all results of good wide receiver play, and he's probably going to throw 50 times. The running back situation, Jalen Richard, DeAndre Washington, Latavius Murray, still got his toe. I can't go with anybody here right now, so they're all getting C+. It's a confidence issue right now. You never know what's going to happen. Probably going to be playing from behind, so they're going to throw. That's all I really have going for him right now. Wide receiver Amari Cooper, B+. 456 through 5, averaging 17.5 yards per catch. He's just missing the touchdowns. That's why he doesn't have the A+ right now, and that's why I can't give him the A because of the touchdown situation. When the quarterback has 11 and your number one wide receiver only has 1 touchdown, it stinks for the fantasy owners. Reason? Wide receiver Michael Crabtree, he's getting the A. To get this kind of production, when you drafted him this late, that's why he's an A. He's doing very well. He has good yardage, and he has the touchdowns. Michael Crabtree playing like a boss. The other part of this, wide receiver Seth Roberts, C+. Nothing more than a TD thief. He averages 20 yards per game and has 3 touchdowns. All of those 3 should be Amari Cooper's. So Seth Roberts, touchdown monster.
Yeah, he was targeted near the end zone again last week.
Terrible.
So, wow.
I watched with an Amari Cooper owner, and he gets so mad when the red zone channel pops up, and it's like, oh, turn it. I don't even want to see this crap.
Yeah, because you know who's going to get that target right there. Little Seth Roberts.
Awesome. And no tight end of value, clearly.
So over to Atlanta at Seattle. This should be a pretty fun game to watch. Begin with the Falcons. Quarterback Matt Ryan, a B grade. So the Falcons proved they could beat the Broncos' vaunted defense. Can they do the same to the league's number 1 pass defense, the Seahawks? Seattle is coming off of a bye, playing in front of their home crowd. Atlanta traveling cross-country to face a secondary that has only allowed 1 passing touchdown all year and is giving up only 184 passing yards per game. Granted, those stats came from the less than stellar arms of Blaine Gabbert, Ryan Tannehill, Case Keenum, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. So you're telling me there's a chance? Yes, actually I am. If Ryan can throw for 267 and a touchdown against Denver, albeit only 15 completions, but he did that, I think he can at least come close to matching those stats against Seattle. Plus, Brian, this is where genius comes in. There's the Dan Quinn factor. The former Seahawks DC should know a thing or two about how to exploit that defense for positive yardage. What do you think of that?
I think you're 50%.
Who else is talking about Dan Quinn?
Only you.
Huh?
Only you.
There we go. See if that works out. Running back Devontae Freeman, a B-. Seattle are 3rd in the league against the run, allowing only 3.3 yards per carry through their first 4 contests. Freeman has emerged as the main runner with some passing game upside, typically stays on the field when the Falcons reach the red zone, but this is an incredibly difficult matchup, so temper your expectations. Tevin Coleman, a C+, shown some explosive potential, mainly as a pass catcher. Seattle is susceptible in that respect, so I view Coleman as a decent flex option, especially in PPR leagues. Julio Jones, a B grade. Despite a likely matchup versus Richard Sherman on most snaps, Jones has the size and skill to not only survive this duel, but actually put up some respectable stats by the final gun. Mohamed Sanu, a C grade. While Sherman gets the majority of the notoriety, Seattle features other very talented corners and safeties that should be able to keep a mediocre talent like Sanu at bay. And tight end Jacob Tamme, a B-. One position that has been relatively consistent against Seattle are tight ends. Though Tamme isn't necessarily a mismatch for the Seahawks linebackers in secondary, he will be targeted a bunch if and when the wide receiver core can't get open. Now on to the Seahawks side, Russell Wilson, an A-. Given another week to rest, Wilson should be as healthy this week as he's been since the season started. The Falcons are 27th against opposing passers, allowing nearly 300 yards per game through the air, a league-high 14 passing touchdowns. Only the Lions are worse in that category. Wilson isn't famous for putting up massive yardage numbers, but should be efficient here and should chip in some production with his feet as well. Christine Michael, I'll give him a B+. You know, the Falcons have been better than average against the run, allowing less than 100 yards per game to opposing backs. Only a total of 2 rushing touchdowns all year thus far. They held C.J. Anderson in the Broncos running game in check last week. 84 yards, no scores, only 3.5 yards per carry. But I think, Michael, there's just something about this game, being at home, and the fact that the Seahawks should be up. I think this will turn out okay for him. I really do. C.J. Spiller, I'll leave on the bench. Doug Baldwin, this should be a big week for him. Stud treatment. I say put him in. Feel good about it. Tyler Lockett, we'll talk about more a little bit later in the show. And Jimmy Graham, an A-, the safest of the Seahawks pass catchers this week. He should be involved early and often against an injury-depleted Falcons linebacker core. More matchups still to come. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, also on iTunes, Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. Really appreciate you checking us out. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Over 40 years of fantasy dominance between the two of us. Many championships won, many opponents bested, and that is why you are here. That and the sweet intel that we offer up.
I'm going to best a special opponent this week. That's you in our head-to-head matchup.
Probably, because my
Yep.
team has been decimated by injury and underperformance.
You should draft better.
I
next
hope
time.
David Johnson scores 5 touchdowns this week.
As long as mine scores, Jamal Charles scores 6, you can.
We'll see about that.
All right, let's do this.
Back into the matchups.
Yeah, Cowboys screaming into Lambeau Field. Quarterback Dak Prescott's going to get a B. Just another day in Dak's life. While he is playing well, he's not playing good enough to keep that starting job once Romo comes back. He has 7 touchdowns combined. As a QB through 5 games, you're going to need more than that to keep Romo out of that starting spot. So Dak is going to get a B here. Running back Ezekiel Elliott, A. It doesn't matter who he's playing or what he's doing. He's probably the best all-around running back in football right now, except for David Johnson. Oh, and he's a rookie. He averages over 5 yards per carry and has over 100 touches already.
Yeah, he's been a beast, no question.
Just insane.
How does he do against that incredible Green Bay Packers #1 rush defense?
He's going to run him over, man.
You say so. I
He's
think
gonna run him
actually
over.
I'm inclined to agree with you.
Yeah, he's unstoppable right now. And until you prove me wrong, he's going to keep getting an A. Wide receiver Des Bryant, he did practice. What's he doing? Who knows? Watch it all the way through because you never know. Des could come trotting out on that field, and it could be different. So if he does go, I'm still going to hesitate. I'm going to give him a B- just because.
B- C+.
Yeah, you never know. He could just be out there as a decoy. Someone I do know about, wide receiver Terrence Williams, B-. He is not filling in well at all.
I'd give him a C. I'd say he's barely even startable.
Terrible. He's not filling in. He has no chemistry with Dak Prescott. Who does, mind you? Oh, Cole Beasley. Bargain bin of weeks past.
My guy.
Huge flex option here as long as Dak is the QB. As long as Dak is the QB, Cole Beasley will be a target monster. He has 330 yards, 27 catches.
Love it.
Trade high on him, friends. Let him get this good week in there. And as Romo starts to come back, cut Cole Beasley loose in a trade, pawn him off on a sucker. Tight end Jason Witten, C+. Desperation play at best. It's the end of his career. He's averaging only 50 yards per game. On to the Packers side of the ball, quarterback Aaron Rodgers. A, would you believe that the Packers are averaging 220 yards per game through the air?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Rodgers has never been a big yardage guy. He's mostly just like multiple touchdowns. That's where he gets you most of your points.
Yeah, crazy. So
And he can run, too.
I think it's going to be remedied here at home, and the run part is a part of this conversation. Rodgers, while through the air only has 220, he also has touchdowns on the ground and has 11 combined touchdowns. So he's going to have another big game here, and that affects Eddie Lacy's grade a little bit. A B. He is hobbled up. There's nobody else. He has to go, so he's limited on Wednesday. He has no touchdowns, so that's hurting his value. And the reason is because Aaron Rodgers. If they're 3 yards out, instead of dumping it off to Lacy, he can pull it back and just trot in.
Yeah, it's kind of like Cam Newton with all those Carolina backs. Jay Stu never scores because, it's usually Cam Newton.
It's Cam. So wide receiver Jordy Nelson, he's going to get the A. He has 5 touchdowns, but the yardage is lacking. He only has 224 after 4 games. The home games are going to help here, but he has that 5 touchdowns. That's just too sexy. Wide receiver Randall Cobb, B. Questionable heading into the game and only has 0 touchdowns. Very glad I stayed away from the Packers this year in my draft. Nearly identical numbers as Nelson, except for that TD category. Should get the Lambeau bump, but he is a low-end wide receiver. Wide receiver Devontae Adams, C+. TD thief here with 3, so start at your own risk. Tight end Jared Cook, he is out, so there's no other tight end to grab here on this roster.
Sunday nighter is Indy at Houston. Start with the Colts. Andrew Luck, a B+. The Texans left Minnesota pretty beat up on the defensive side, losing cornerback Jonathan Joseph, linebacker Brian Peters, and safety Quentin Demps. If any or all of these 3 gentlemen missed this weekend's game, Luck should be in line for a very productive day. Despite Houston's current rank of 4th against opposing passers, one should keep in mind those stats were due to the subpar QB play of Jay Cutler, Alex Smith, Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, and Sam Bradford. Not exactly a murderer's row there. Nor are the Texans up front, now that they've lost both starting D ends for the season, which could mean more time for Luck to find his targets downfield. Frank Gore, a C+. He ran well against Houston in 2015 at their place. totaling 98 yards and a touchdown in October. Just 2 months later at home, though, he mustered only 59 total yards, no scores. My belief is the Colts attack Houston through the air here primarily. T.Y. Hilton is an easy A grade. He's been targeted more consistently than any other wide receiver in the entire league through 5 games. Coupled with Luck's positive history versus Houston and the fact that their secondary is nearly completely depleted due to injury, Hilton is one of the week's best plays at the position. Philip Dorsett, a B. I like him for a lot of the many of the same reasons I love Hilton. He's Luck's second best downfield option. He should see plenty of targets here against a handful of backups. Dwayne Allen, Jack Doyle, both C grades. To me, Indy's tight ends kind of cancel each other out on a week-to-week basis. 1 week it's Allen, the next it's Doyle. After that, their respective output could be relatively equal. It's an exercise in futility, so I'm staying away. For the Texans, quarterback Brock Osweiler, a C+. Despite what appears to be a juicy matchup, I'm not ready to pull the trigger on Osweiler. He hasn't been very accurate, nor has he taken care of the ball, turning the ball over multiple times in each of his first 5 starts. Lamar Miller, though, an A grade. 5 weeks, no scores. A ton of volume, which has buoyed his fantasy production as a whole, but he has yet to reach the potential we all drafted him on in August. Should be in line for another heavy workload in this one against a bad Colts run D, currently ranked 20th in the league at stopping the run, and I think Miller gets into the end zone finally. Hopkins gets an A-. DeAndre Hopkins destroyed the Colts in both of last year's head-to-head matchups, averaging 9 receptions for 131 yards. And if the Bears' Cameron Meredith can hang a 130-yard, 1-touchdown performance on that secondary, I think Hopkins can do at least that under the bright lights of Sunday night. Will Fuller, a B+. The rookie's consistency when he's not playing New England or Minnesota has been nothing short of incredible. He's catching more than 5 passes per game, averaging nearly 100 yards per game outside of those 2 tough Ds. This week, since he likely avoids the Colts' best cover corner Vontae Davis, I like him nearly as much as I like Hopkins, which is an awful lot this week. Tight end C.J. Fedorowicz, I just love to say the name. I'll give him a C grade. I'd prefer you don't reach this far when there are probably better options with a higher ceiling on your waiver wire. Sure, he's seeing an increase in targets as of late, and sure, yeah, he's reached the end zone here and there, but I'm not buying just yet.
Are you out of breath, big guy?
No, sir.
No?
Still got plenty left with that game.
Fantastic. Jets Cards, quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick. See, Jets should have moved on from Fitz, and especially with Decker hurt, his value is just dropping. I happened to win with him last week as I needed a Breeze fill-in, so I was pretty happy with that. Running back Matt Forte, B+. Plenty of action for Forte here. Cards have the 28th worst run defense, so he should get his this week. Wide receiver Brandon Marshall, B-. Cards are getting much better on the pass defense, and this is going to give Marshall pressure the entire night. Also, rolling coverage, no Decker, so they don't have to double up Inunwa, who's getting a C+. He's hanging around 50 or 60 yards per game, only has to have 1 touchdown. This is his opportunity to step up. This is your opportunity to grab him off the waiver wire while you can now, before you get to Sunday morning. So you have to assume his role is ready to explode, and hopefully he's ready for it. Tight end Austin Seferian-Jenkins, B-. Coach said he's going to get more involved this week. He's going to have all that opportunity to shine it. I don't like him as much as the yardage threat, but I do like him as the touchdowns for ASJ. On to the Cardinals side of the ball, quarterback Drew Stanton, Carson Palmer.
I think it's going to be Palmer this week. I think we can safely say.
Yeah, but are the Cards in a better situation?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I don't think so. Carson Palmer is probably going to have the yardage, but I'm going to give him a B. I don't trust a quarterback coming back from the concussion protocol, and he exactly wasn't hot when he was out either. His one safety net, David Johnson, he's going to get a B. I wanted to give him a higher grade, but the Jets are giving up 68 yards per game, which is insane. Now, I do know David Johnson does catch passes, so that's probably where he's going to get most of his action this week. But still, it's David Johnson, so I'm giving him a B. Wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald, A. It's Fitz, baby. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He has 361 and 5 touchdowns. Wide receiver Michael Floyd, which, by the way, they only needed 2 players last week to win against the Niners. They only needed 2 players. It was ridiculous. Wow. They had like 98% of the production. Wide receiver Michael Floyd, B-. It's a crapshoot between these 2 guys with John Brown. They are only separated by 15 yards per game, but Floyd has that TD. So I wouldn't start either of these guys if you don't have to. It's terrible.
I don't know. That Jets secondary is so bad.
It's so bad, but
that's why I
Fitz is
like
so
Palmer.
awesome,
I know I
man.
like Palmer this week, but I mean David Johnson
can't.
should have it. I mean that's a tough matchup for anybody for David Johnson for sure.
Yeah.
You know.
And then you've got Darren Fells. He's still questionable. So if you
Yeah.
don't have Fitz or David Johnson, I probably wouldn't start anybody on the
Interesting.
Cardinals.
Interesting.
I just waited out. It's confidence, man. It's confidence. I
Does-
like to start my roster with confidence.
Do the two teams combine to score 45 points?
No.
I don't think so either.
No,
I think
it's going to
gonna
be
a low
like
scoring game.
14-17.
Well, I don't know if it'll be that low, but it might be. I don't know. The Jets like to keep it low. That's for sure competitive. Stick around. We have one final segment left of this week's episode of the 515 Fantasy Football Show. Brian and I'll give you our bargain bin picks, and then it's the flea flicker. That's all next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Final segment of this week's 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. This final segment split into two different parts. Part one would be the bargain bin picks, in which Brian and I each give you one quarterback, one running back, and one pass catcher, could be a wide receiver or a tight end, that chances are available in your league on the waiver wire right now. You can go grab them, plug them in this week, and expect a decent amount of production from. And Brian, who do you have as your quarterback?
He was in my first matchup. He was the first name that came out of my mouth. Quarterback Trevor Siemian. With San Diego's issues in the secondary and losing both of their top cornerbacks, I like Trevor Siemian here, and he's owned in, I think, only 43% of leagues.
Very good. My quarterback for the third week in a row
Oh, geez.
is Brian Hoyer. 3 games of over 300 yards passing and 2 touchdowns.
And no one's catching on.
That, by the way, is a feat that Jay Cutler has never reached in nearly 100 games with the Chicago Bears.
Crazy.
Am I worried that Jacksonville has the third best pass defense against opposing passers? Mildly. They might not be allowing massive yardage, but they have given up a good number of touchdowns, including 4 to San Diego's Phillip Rivers just a few weeks ago. In 2 meetings with the Jags last season as a member of the Texans, Hoyer threw for 293 and 3 in the first, 249, 1 and 1 in the second. Even the average of those stats give you a worthwhile reason to start him this week. Who's your running back?
My running back is not an immediate payoff. It is a stash. Running back Jay Ajayi. As everyone has been dropping him because of Foster's impending return, this is where you, if you have the roster space, snag him and stash him for when Foster gets hurt. You now have trade bait to grab somebody else.
He's so awful, though.
He's so awful, but he's going to be. If Foster gets hurt long term, what else you got?
I don't know. Damian Williams.
But if you're a Foster owner, what do you got?
Yeah, I
Nothing.
guess. My running back is Devontae Booker, Denver. Available in 90% of Yahoo leagues, Booker has seen a definite increase in snaps from week 1 when he was only on the field for 10% of the time. Only got 3 touches, by the way, in that game. Week 2, up to nearly 20% with 10 touches. Week 3, nearly 24% with 5 touches. Week 4, 25% with 7 touches. And last week, my friend, Devontae Booker was on the field over 41%. 10 touches.
Ruh-roh.
The Chargers have been solid against the run in that they don't allow a ton of yards per game. Most of their opponents take to the air more often to beat them. But one thing of note here is that the Chargers have given up a league most rushing touchdowns with 8. And I wonder to myself, could Devontae Booker be gifted with at
Ninja.
least one of those? It's interesting. So if you're in the need
Ninja.
of a dart throw at the running back position, I say Devontae Booker. Who's your pass catcher?
Wide receiver Cameron Meredith. I gave him a B in the matchup.
Like it.
Way under the radar. I think he's owned like 23% of the leagues. You need to start padding yourself, especially in this matchup against the Jags. I really like Cameron Meredith.
It's always a bit scary when you're picking up a guy you've never heard of until he came out and had a decent day. And a lot of times it's because somebody got hurt. So in the case of Chicago, it'd be Kevin White, who's now on IR. And Cameron Meredith comes out of nowhere. And there's a little bit of hesitation there to pick up a guy like that because, you know, if you've never heard of him, chances are, would he be able to do that again?
You know, and that's a good point because as we are looking through people's rosters and we're trying to trade off our studs and looking through, I still see teams with like 3 and 4 tight ends. And I'm like, what are you doing? This is where you need a Cameron Meredith.
I mean, I did pick him up in our league. I'm a guy who has multiple tight ends in that league. Part of the reason I'm having to hold so many is because I thought Tyler Eifert would be back by now, and I'm not going to drop him. So I have to hold at least 2 tight ends there, and then I had another situation with a bye week. So that's how I ended up saddled with a whole bunch of tight ends. But
Silly.
anyway, my pass catcher this week is also a wide receiver, Tyler Lockett of Seattle. A bit of risk here, considering reports are that he's been playing through a partially torn PCL. Lockett hasn't been on the field more than 32% of the time over the past 3 games. Coming off a bye, though, it is feasible that Lockett could take advantage of a leaky Falcons secondary that currently ranks 27th against the position, has allowed a league-high 14 touchdowns to opposing pass catchers, and oh, by the way, the Falcons' best cover corner, Desmond Trufant, probably going to be saddled up with Doug Baldwin all day long. So, Tyler Lockett, nice dart throw at the pass-catching position.
I agree.
Well, that is it for the bargain bin picks. Hopefully one or more of those can be of some use to you this week. Brian and I have a regular feature called the Flea Flicker that wraps up each and every episode of this 515 Fantasy Football Show. Brian, I know you've got something in mind. Go ahead and lead us off.
Well, I'm actually going to throw you a curveball here. I want to get to my quick hit. My quick hit is not much discussion, but it's an idea.
Okay.
Kickers having fractured scoring. Fractioned scoring, not fractured. They didn't break a leg. Fractioned scoring. So if your kicker kicks a 31-yard field goal, you get 3.1 points. If he kicks a 39-yard field goal, you get 3.9 points.
So, I mean, if running backs and receivers and all
Absolutely.
of them get that sort of like,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean,
Because how frustrating it is, like, oh my God, if they just would have took one step backwards, you could have got to that 40-yard category or that 50-yard category.
Here's the problem with that logic. How many points does a running back or a wide receiver get when they score a touchdown?
6.
6. What does a kicker get when he kicks a field goal? No matter where he is on the field.
3.
3.
I've
You
never
can't
been,
change it.
Yeah, but
You can give bonuses for long field goals.
yeah,
That's fine.
because it's if 40-yarders a 4 point, 50
Don't-
yards 5 point.
Yeah, don't do what Brian does, by the way. If you're a commissioner of your league,
No.
don't dock kickers for missing kicks.
No, we don't dock 'em.
I thought you did.
No,
Okay. I thought
no
we had
way.
this conversation.
No, we don't dock.
I always thought that was the dumbest thing.
It's not the kicker's fault most of the time.
No, it's the holder or this long
or
snapper.
the weather.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot
try
always
that
blame.
67-yarder. Yeah, go for it. And you're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, you
just
can't always
lost me
blame
3
the kicker.
points.
Listen, this is coming from a former kicker. I can tell you, most of the time it wasn't my fault. So there.
Laces out.
Exactly.
All right.
Where are my isotoners? It's getting cold in here. Go ahead.
Trading is agitating.
It is. Oh my God.
You cannot always win the trade. You are trading based on your need, not trading on value.
Right. It's also like a matter of who's trading. If somebody comes at you with a trade offer, it's up to them to sell that trade.
Yeah. If you're just coming to me with a trade, like, here's my offer, what do you want for this player? And then I respond to you and say, I don't need this trade. I don't need anybody. So if you want me to give up one of my players just to give up players to make you better for no benefit to me, that's not going to happen. I want something in return. Now, if we both have a need, if you have a need at running back and I have a need at wide receiver, and we're swapping players to fill a need to boost depth, it drives me nuts when people are like, nope, that guy has 2 more points than mine does. It's not you need this, I need this. It's not about value, for crying out loud. We both have a need here. We're both going to get better. I hate people when have to win by
Every
a landslide.
trade,
Oh,
yeah.
it just makes me sick.
That's not the way trade should work.
Have
They
fun
should
at 1
be
and
as
4.
It should be as equal as humanly possible. But a lot of times it just doesn't turn out that way. And I'll be honest with you, Brian, right now. In your league that I just joined this year as the last place team, I took over the last place team. I'm doing a lot better than he ever was. That's for sure thus far. But I'm having a hell of a time trying to get somebody to trade with me. I've been through half your league thus far trying to get somebody to trade. And I'm the one that's offering more value than the players I'm asking of them. And I'm in the position where I need a wide receiver. I've got a stable of running backs who've scored a lot of points. I'm offering one of them, and nobody will bite. I don't get it. Maybe I'm the new guy in the league and just nobody will play ball.
No, I think it's a combination of being scared, being at the bottom, people not pulling the trigger. Because we have penalties in our league, so if you lose a game, it's minus a certain dollar amount. If you make a transaction, it's $1. If you trade, it's money. Everything you do in my commission league costs you money.
which is so weird, by the way. I'm not used to it yet.
It stokes the pot, man. It stokes it. It gets more cash flow going. It puts a penalty out there. Because what I really hate, I should have made this one of my notes here, is leagues that don't. Because then I've been in leagues where it's like a guy's making 10 moves a week because anybody who scored a touchdown that wasn't on a roster, he's picked up the last week. And they just keep cycling. Well, that screws you over for someone who's trying to be strategic and get only players you need.
That's why you should do auction leagues.
And
make sure players have a dollar value attached to them.
Or
you have
put
to spend
financial penalties on them.
But you're spending theoretical money in an auction
We're spending
league.
real money. This is
I know
real
you
auction.
are because you're a gambler. That's why.
right. That's right. I'll put the money up.
Yeah, it's different, Brian. I'll be honest with you. I mean, there are things about your league that frustrate the hell out of me. But then again, there's some things I don't want to get into. We don't have time
next
for
week.
That. We don't have time. Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. How's that? We thank you so much for tuning into our little show. We work very hard, Brian and I, trying to get you the best intel possible. We invite you to reach out anytime on our Facebook page, 515 Fantasy Football, via Twitter, at 515 Fantasy, at Andy Hall Radio, at Ike FFB. That's IKEFFB. You can check us out on the SleeperBot app as well. I'll be offering some free advice, answering your questions in the hour or so leading up to kickoff on Sunday at noon. So until next time, again, thank you so much for listening. For Mr. Brian Eikenberry, I'm Andy Hall. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio.